Hello and welcome to the Abundance Mindset Podcast. Today we're talking about three core planning concepts that we see come up really frequently with the people that we work with. They're three things that when they work together are super powerful, and when they don't are really inefficient.
So we are working a lot of times with a high income earning professional or family, and they a lot of times are receiving equity compensation on top of their salary. And usually they have a 401k, a lot of times a souped up one with maybe a mega backdoor after
Mhm.
tax option. And so this is kind of the individual that we're referencing when we run through these three planning concepts. But these three concepts, they frequently work together. They frequently are y not used as efficiently as they could be, and so we just find some commonalities, especially when we're talking with these people, and they're great. They're coming to us, the first meeting, it's like, "Okay, you're obviously a smart person," but these 3 things we just start seeing commonly.
Yeah.
And so we wanna list them. It's not comprehensive, of course, and I mean, and it's not even that big picture. Like the people who we're meeting, they're not necessarily they don't know exactly when they're going to retire, exactly how much a month they're going to live off of, and the fluctuation variance they have with that, and the flexibility variance they have, and Medicare. Like it's, we're going to talk about three a little bit more specific problems just to give you something to go on. And also just give you some food for thought because you are probably going to be able to relate to things like 401ks, things like tax planning, things like equity comp. So let's just start with the 401k. Because I think that is it's such a great tool. It's a powerful lever. I love to use it in tax planning and with equity compensation and just someone's overall retirement savings. But it's such a great tool for so many different parts of planning, depending on how you're going to add and what you're going to do within there. So let's start with the 401k.
Yeah. So 401ks, really common tool that people have, and really like a foundation if you have it available to you for your future and your retirement planning, right? So we want to be really bulletproof here, and we don't want to leave any efficiencies on the table. We actually have a whole other episode just talking about common 401k mistakes, but
Mhm.
briefly here, like we're looking at like, are we adding efficiently? Are we making the most of the employer match? And that's sometimes not just as straightforward as saying, am I adding the right percentage, but also am I adding consistently throughout the year? Is my employer profit sharing? Am I, am I taking advantage of the things that the employer has made available to me?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot you could say on a 401k. I do like the word foundation. So within the 401k, three things kind of come to mind. The first is just how you're contributing, right? Are you adding your standard for 2025, 23,500 in pre-tax or Roth? Are you starting, with even just that decision and saying, okay, I'm going to do pre-tax because I'm looking for an in-year deduction, or I'm going to do Roth because I'm looking for tax-free growth, weighing that against your tax strategy. That's kind of the first, just how you're adding and how much you're adding, right? And knowing, okay, I need to put in X percentage because this is my, retirement goal and it's working with my outside IRA. So it's how you're adding, how much you're adding, what the tax impact of how you're adding is. So it's just literally contributing to your 401k. There's all of these decisions, and a lot of times people just don't have intentionality. They just pick one, or they just, HR just kind of they got automatically enrolled into pre-tax and never looked at it again. Not that that's right or wrong, but it's just that they didn't even they just haven't given it thought. And even how much you're adding throughout the year, right? The sheer percentage, because a lot of times people, especially these high income earners, they're maxing their 401k out too quickly throughout the year. And I've seen one unique circumstance where they actually didn't get the match the other half of the year because the employer needed a contribution to match. But two, even if that's not the case and you're still getting the match, it's if you're maxing out so early and then the market drops in the fall and you're not adding to your 401k because you already maxed it out, then you're really missing out on a deal, right? And you're missing out on that cost averaging and just averaging the best price of the market, buying throughout the year. So there, I mean, we're even getting into, purchasing the market at ideal um, time. So that's why it's such a rich conversation and a lot of just common mistakes and planning concepts here, just in how you're adding to your 401k. So this is just going in. We haven't even talked about what's inside yet, but just how you're contributing.
Right. And like you said, like this is a foundation. Like this is people's typically their if they have one, like their flagship retirement vehicle because it has the highest contribution limit of typical vehicles available. It has options for employers to add more, sometimes options for you to add more above that standard limit, sometimes all the way up to the absolute IRS maximum, 70K this calendar year. So yeah, it's flagship. You don't want to miss out. And then once you're not missing out and you're actually contributing, you don't want to get it wrong. Or
Mhm.
wrong's not even necessarily the right word, but just like less efficient, right? Like a lot of times the people we work with, like they're going to retire, but like we're helping them retire more confidently with more money, more efficiently, paying less in taxes. So it's like, okay, can we just do this a lot better and put more money in your pocket? Especially with something that's just as important as like your flagship future proofing vehicle.
Oh, absolutely. I was talking with a mid-career professional. They're a multimillionaire. They're really smart. I really respect him. But I'm looking at his plan and I'm looking at his 401k and I'm seeing just this after tax portion just sitting there. And for the most part, there's just not a lot of reasons that you would have money sitting in after tax. So again, this is above that 23,500. Let's say, their 401k has that mega backdoor. So it's just sitting there. It hadn't been converted, it hadn't been, touched. And so this is just again how you're contributing really, really matters. And he had no idea. It was just sitting in after tax. And so now is gonna be taxed again.
Mhm.
And so that's where just having a strategy, around this and how you're contributing. So let's talk about what's inside. So we're talking a lot about how you're adding, but let's just talk about what's inside the 401k because yes, you might have a pre-tax bucket, a Roth bucket, an after-tax bucket. You might have in-plan conversions and all these like tax wrappers within, but ultimately you do have to make a choice on how you're going to be invested.
Yep. Yeah, and that's actually kind of the crux of participant-directed retirement plans, right? Like putting the responsibility, the onus on you as the participant. And the regulators have done something kind for people that aren't paying much attention in the sense of auto enrollment. So in most 401ks, you should be auto enrolled in something like a target date fund or a diversified balance fund. So you're going to be invested, but is that investment the most appropriate for your time horizon, your goals, your risk tolerance, and also is it the best setup to give you the best return for those variables that you have in your life? It's great that they have it and, and that they don't just put your 401k into cash because that just isn't going to get you as far. But yeah, is your investment mix serving your goals appropriately, or are you just in a cookie cutter model that again you might retire on it, it might be fine, but you might leave a lot of efficiency on the table.
Yeah, you may have been auto enrolled into a life cycle fund or a target date 2050 fund and never touched it. And my friends in the 2050, so it's just there's usually those kind of basic options and not that there's anything necessarily wrong with it, but a lot of times there's other indice funds, specialty funds, index funds below that you should look at and know, hey, do these funds are they cheaper? Not that that's necessarily better, but what are the fees for all these different investments? Because a lot of times those, not always, but those life cycle target date funds, the kind of the cookie cutter, right? They rebalance each year. They buy more bonds each year, which, if you're a young professional, you might not need bonds quite yet, but ultimately that rebalancing feature sometimes costs more. And so just underline what are the fees, and you'll be able to find that in your 401k, right? And these funds do have costs. There can actually be a lot of different types of fees in your 401k, but at least knowing what the investment funds cost you inside of that
Mhm.
plan. And then even if there's sometimes a fee that you're paying for someone to, manage those funds or not. I mean, you should be aware of this, but looking at the other index funds, knowing, hey, are these less expensive because they're not rebalancing? What have they done historically compared to these target dates? Or even just if there's not an extensive list beyond that, sometimes 401ks have a brokerage link, which can open up almost the whole marketplace. And so that really expands your options. And if you're fee conscious, gives you a lot of leeway there to make decisions. And so it's just, how are you invested? Where are you? What's your money? What areas of the world is it touching? What does it cost?
Mm.
There's so much in investments, but those are the questions to start asking and seeing what features are available inside your 401k instead of just, I'm in this one fund. I've been in this one fund since I've started. My friend's in this fund. I mean, we've been in client meetings where again, this isn't advice, this isn't for every single person, but we were able to save them thousands of dollars each year after they went through a paid plan, triple, quadruple the planning fee year after year, just in helping them reroute their 401k contributions to other funds within their 401k that happen to be higher returning and cost less. And so it's another layer when you start to peel back the 401k that really matters. And then, rebalancing that is too. I mean, there's so much that I could talk about.
Yeah, yeah, we probably save the rest of 401ks for our 401k specific episode, but there's a lot there. And with great power comes great responsibility, right? So if you start to go into full customization mode on the 401k, I remember it's a participant directed plan. So there's safety in the cookie cutter, but if you're ready to step into higher sophistication, there's a lot more sophistication to be had. And typically would recommend working with a professional on that. But know that a 401k can be a lot more than it is when you just get automatically enrolled into it.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of 401k SPDs or summary plan descriptions. So documents that you get when you sign up for your 401k that say you should consult a financial planner. Be sure to consult a financial planner on these funds. But that's just because there is a lot of efficiency to be had when it comes to tax planning, investment planning, and just using your 401k as a lever within your plan.
Right. So 401k, key retirement flagship vehicle, right? So it's a concept that we run into a lot. There's a lot of efficiencies to squeeze out of it. But let's say you've squeezed all the efficiencies out of your 401k. You've got that going in a maximally efficient manner. The next core concept is around what your tax plan is. 401k plays into that. Basically everything plays into your tax plan, but I say the concept to talk about within it is tax bracket maximization. Everybody wants to pay the least taxes, at least everyone I know wants to pay as little tax as possible, as legally possible. We're not talking about doing anything shady, but just not tipping the IRS, being efficient with where you're putting money, how that money is taxed, and not inadvertently making or putting money in places that cause it to be taxed at a higher rate. So a tax plan is a core part of financial planning and something that should be part of every financial plan, where we say, okay, let's look at current tax rates, expected future tax rates, look at all sorts of types of income, investments, and optimize both your near-term and your long-term tax plan.
Right. I think about tax planning as a scale, a weight. And on the scale, I'm weighing my in-year deductions, my need for in-year deductions, right? Tax savings against my projected future tax savings. And you're the scale, right? You're trying to weigh, what should I try to soak up or push off or increase my income this year. That's the weight of the scale, but the goal of this scale is to decrease your overall tax drag, to look at your long-term tax landscape and saying, do I need to soak up certain brackets now and increase my income because I'm in a favorable environment, or do I need to decrease and again pull some of these levers, maybe switch my 401k to pre-tax this year or Roth this year, and make those decisions with a long-term tax view.
Right.
So yeah, that's big picture.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, this is the crux of personalization, but I would say a common concept is that trying to squeeze every penny of deduction every year typically is going to result in a larger lifetime tax burden. And Not always, but that's why tax planning is really important because we want to weigh near-term efficiencies, be as efficient, pay as little tax as possible. That's efficient in a year, but also look at where are there good opportunities to pay more tax now so that later we pay less and have a return on tax payment, kind of like return on investment, I guess.
Well, absolutely. And a lot of times for a lot of people, at least that we work with, it's a mix. And it's this mix, a beautiful mix of trying to soak up as much in your deductions we can, making any DAF contributions using our HSA, maybe doing a tiny bit of pre-tax here or there, like in your deductions, soaking up those tax savings deductions, but then making really long-term moves, which might be an increase in income. It might be say, okay, we got this much wiggle room in our tax bracket. We're going to make this much of a Roth conversion this year. And
Yep.
so that's the merriment of, sometimes it being a mix.
Yep. 100%. So these, two concepts working together, huge part of long-term planning. The third piece is equity compensation, which we do see frequently in the people that we work with. And this one, I consider like the accelerant or, almost the pizzazz on the plan. Actually, I will note a lot of times in planning, we'll actually strip equity comp out to start with the modeling and then put it in because equity comp can be an incredible accelerant on your personal financial picture, but you don't want to hinge retirement on it because ultimately equity comp is um, putting your net worth and your compensation, your earning potential inside a company's performance. So that can work out really well for you or it can work out really badly for you. So we aren't trying to hinge retirement goals on a single company's performance. That's a very concentrated risk if we were. But let's zoom out. Like this can be really fun because company stock can go up and that's fun when it does. And when it goes up, there's a lot of back to tax planning efficiencies that you can obtain if you're really smart with your equity compensation. So big part of planning.
Yeah, I mean, think about these three things we're talking about together, right? If we're in planning and we're saying, okay, this year is it's going to be a really low income year. We're going to exercise that maybe we're getting RSUs or we're exercising a stock option or, okay, this is going to be income. And it's either going to be ordinary income or long-term capital gains, depending on when we do this. And so that is tax planning. And then we might make a shift in our 401k. We might do a little bit of pre-tax. Otherwise, we're going to get pushed into this next tax bracket, right? So it's just boom, all of that together. And this is just like the fun of planning and the different levers that you can pull and why a lot of times it makes sense for these high income earners to start to get some advice because all of these things start to bleed into each other.
Hmm.
But yes, if we look at equity compensation, so maybe you're getting RSUs or you have stock options, it's money above your salary and you might have some control. A lot of times you at least have some decisions because tax decisions, market decisions, even just like belief and
Hmm.
concentration decisions because if you start to get a lot of company stock, which again is variable, you don't know if it's going to go up or down. Generally, there's concentration risk in saying, okay, well, I don't want I mean, for our clients, we try not to let someone have more than 10, max 15% of their overall investment portfolio in one stock, right? Otherwise, we are hinging too much just on one company. And so again, if there are goals attached to this, we try to make sure that we're bulletproof and then we can get into tax planning when it comes into equity comp.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what's most interesting but also challenging with equity compensation is just the variability of its impact on your tax picture. So
Mhm.
company stock goes up 50% in a year. That means all of your equity awards, if they're being vested or exercised in the year, that means there's 50% more value in those, 50% more taxable implications, whether that's in long-term capital gains or maybe with an ISO, it's maybe the tax is being pushed down to a later year, but you have to watch out for the alternative minimum tax or
Mhm.
an RSU that's just going to vest regardless. If your company stocks goes way up, maybe that's and we're not sure it's a super volatile stock. We might want to pull your 401k over towards pre-tax because you're suddenly incurring a bunch of income from your RSUs. So I think the point being a lot of variability gets injected into your plan when you have equity comp. And I would say this falls in the hashtag good problems category, but it opens up a lot of opportunities to be more or less tax efficient depending on how well you manage it.
Yes, you could be looking at ordinary income tax. You could be looking at long-term capital gains tax if you've held it long enough. But even that, within that, it could be 15%, could be 20%, depending on how much you sell. So it gets really important when you're tax planning to make sure your equity comp is in alignment with your overall plan.
Yep.
So yes, these are the common problems we see, and a lot of times this keeps people up at night. Equity comp is, yeah, it's kind of the firework of a plan, and equity comp a lot of times it's the part of the plan that keeps people up at night. And they worry about it because they can at least see it on their portal,
Mhm.
but they, 401k you can log in and see your balance, but you're not really sure. You know it's there and it seems like it's going up, so it's okay. You don't think too much. But then you can log in and see your equity comp, and that can really keep people up at night because
Yeah.
they know this is one bet. This is one company.
Yep. Yeah, and on the flip side, the amount of peace that we've seen people feel when they stop hinging their retirement goals on a single company stock and they put a plan in place that leverages the way that they've hopefully been leveraged forward by that company, leverages it but doesn't bet on it.
Mhm.
That brings a lot of peace for people once they
Yeah.
once they bring their equity compensation to heel as a part of their plan, not the lead player but the supporting star.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the tax planning that goes with that. So again, these are just common planning concepts that we just see all the time, right? The 401k being more efficient, any kind of equity comp being a lot more efficient, and just responsible. And then tax planning a lot of times just gets missed. And it's a lot of times leveraging some of these tools all together, but that tax planning is really the sweet spot where, we're talking about different growth and stock prices, but tax planning can save you so much money, especially if you project, savings in year and looking forward with changes that you can make in these tools that we're talking about. And so tax planning, again, it just gets missed. And so these three things together, when they come together in a financial plan and we can start making it work with the overall strategy is a really exciting thing
Mhm.
and can save someone big dollars,
Yeah.
and it's really exciting in how they can play together, and ultimately just save someone money and give them peace of mind as well, just to have a strategy that's gonna make it all work together.
Right. Yeah, so if you couldn't tell, 3 concepts that we really enjoy because they bring a lot of value, they show up frequently in the people that we work with, and, yeah, when they work together can really move a financial plan forward in a positive direction. So, yeah, we get excited when we see people make progress, and, yeah, if this is something that's speaking to you and you're interested in checking out what a financial plan might look like for you, you can go to our website, request a free consultation, and we can start to personalize this conversation to you and see if it might be a fit to dig deeper.
If this is something that you're relating to and is a thing and you just haven't taken any action because, well, I have money, so, I'm better than the next guy. Just know that there is really another level that you can achieve, and so I would encourage you to reach out, go on our website, book a consult, and just start to have the conversation because just taking that first step and talking about it, it just gets the ball rolling and it's advantageous because there's so much more that you can do within your plan.